We can't predict the future, but with the right data, it doesn't hurt to try. Jeremy Saltan runs the Knesset Insider website dedicated to crunching all the political numbers. He's also the chairman of the Anglo Forum of the Jewish Home Party. He joins me now in the studio to talk Jewish home and polling data. Jeremy, welcome.
It's great to be here.
Lieberman is about to get the defense ministry with only 5 seats, while your party, Naftali Bennett, bring 8 seats to the table and the leader is still in the education ministry. Are you worried that perhaps going into the next election you're going to be overshadowed by Israel Beitenu as the second largest party of the right?
Well, there's going to be plenty of time until the next elections. I think most people will agree that following the addition of Yisrael Beitenu to the government, we'll most likely be able to have an extension of life to this government through probably early 2019. And in Israeli politics that we've witnessed over the last week, plenty can happen in a short period of time. So there's plenty of time until the next election.
Well, among the plenty of things that might happen is Naftali Bennett thinking of renegotiating the terms of the coalition and demanding the foreign ministry if Lieberman's getting defense?
Well, you heard that right now he's keeping that for the Zionist Union. We'll see what happens. For now, we're still waiting for the actual coalition agreement with Lieberman to be presented to the Knesset and the government. Once it is actually on the table, we'll take the time to study it, learn it. Of course, the Deputy Defense Minister is Rabbi Eli Ben-Dahan, who is a member of our party, and we want to see what's going to happen in terms of the coalition agreements and how, of course, that might be impacted by the entrance of Victor Lieberman.
So not ruling out a renegotiation of certain terms?
Well, that's not up to me to decide. That'll be for, of course, Minister Bennett.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the polling numbers then. On the threshold of this expanded coalition, who have been the winners and losers from the last year of the Knesset?
Well, we've seen that slowly but surely, Yair Lapid and the Yesh Atid party has just continued to grow and grow and grow, particularly if you look at an average of the polls that have come out over the last week. You see that now Yesh Atid is averaging at 20 seats, which is within striking distance of the Likud, which is just over 26. Whereas the Zionist Union, who came in with 24 seats just a little over a year ago, is now down to about 14 seats.
Are we seeing any movement between the blocs, or are the votes being reshuffled within the right, within the center, and within the left?
It's actually pretty much the same. We've seen the 67-seat bloc that has been in the right religious parties of Shas, UTJ, Beit Yehudi, Likud, and Yisrael Beitenu maintained for the most part over the last year plus. And what we have seen is a lot of movement from time to time within those blocks. Right now, it's very clear. Yesh Atid is going up, Zionist Union is going down, Meretz is even able to go ahead and take a little bit out of the Zionist Union decline.
Well, let's have a look at how things might move forward. Polling data suggests that the public remains opposed to the appointment of Avigdor Lieberman as defense minister. Who's going to gain and who's going to suffer from this controversial appointment?
It's interesting because, as you mentioned, there's been so many polling coming out over the last few days. Almost everybody will tell you that Ya'alon is their preferred defense minister to Lieberman in any poll you're taking a look at. However, when you see the seat breakdown, there's not much of a decline for Likud. Again, Likud had 30 seats. They're down to 26 and change. That's not a very significant decline, especially if you look at what's happened over the last week and the zigzag of going from Herzog to Lieberman.
Now, let's have a look then at some hypothetical scenarios to see what sort of political power Ya'alon might be bringing by himself. In his fiery resignation speech in the Kiryah, he announced that in the next election he would return to compete for the national leadership. Speaking hypothetically, what were his options?
Well, there were 3 different options that were examined through polling over the last week or so. One is to see what would happen if he would come and head the actual Likud list. There he would get 19 seats. That's significantly lower than what would happen if Netanyahu would lead that list.
And in that poll, Beit Yehudi is jumping to 17 seats. This must be a scenario that you're looking forward to, Ya'alon running for Likud leadership.
Well, I must say that would be a very interesting thing if that happened. And if you want to look at the blocks, the best version for the bloc is if Ya'alon goes on a hypothetical ticket with Kahlon and Kahlon-Saar. In a situation like that, you pretty much have a situation where the center-left Arab bloc of Yesh Atid, Zionist Union, Meretz, and the joint list falls to a very, very small number.
Well, let's have a look at that poll specifically. If Ya'alon runs on a joint ticket with Kahlon and Saar, some people might call it a Likud B, although the Likud has had other spin-off parties
Likud
before.
C or
Likud
D.
C or D after Beitenu and after other parties. The Likud seems to be At the same, it's floating on around 26 seats, while Kulano seems to be gaining at Yesh Atid's expense. It seems to be getting 17 seats compared to the 7 in the average you presented earlier, while Yesh Atid, instead of 20, is falling to 12. Who are these voters who are moving around between these parties here?
Well, there are a lot of people who are in the center, and this is a very interesting scenario, because if this scenario happens, this is the worst possible thing that could happen to the Israeli left. A lot of people on the Israeli left don't even really consider someone like Yair Lapid part of their camp, but they do realize that at this point, at least, polling shows that he's the most serious alternative as prime minister. So when you have a situation like this, Yesh Atid drops down to 11 seats in that poll. Zionist Union also falls down to about that much. You have a situation where the right religious bloc gets a significant bump. So it's rather interesting how you have these voters who are center, and they continue to have this deliberation if they should go for a more center-right or center-left option. And it seems like personalities are really at play here.
Well, we continue to refer to a right religious bloc, but if one listens to Ya'alon's speech, he was extremely critical towards Netanyahu and the way that the Likud leadership would be progressing, and it's not altogether clear that such a hypothetical party would prefer the Likud as opposed to running with Lapid. You're convinced they're still aligned with the right wing naturally?
Yes, it was Ya'alon who said, I plan on leading the nationalist camp. He didn't say I'm going to come back and lead the state of Israel or the nation of Israel. I think there was a reason he said the nationalist camp.